There's a place I have found in the shade on the ground.
Okay, so here we are in Falmouth, Massachusetts, and this is what I do on my day off. I know it's kind of pathetic, it's New Year's Eve, but a friend of mine asked me what's going on with his tree, so I couldn't help myself. So it looked a little weak up top, so when I noticed that, I usually go down to the ground to see what might be causing it. So this tree's been planted here almost 2 years, and a lot of time, the first thing I noticed was this swelling here, which most trees nowadays are all grafted. So this is a tupelo. So what they do is they put a desirable top or scion on a rootstock that's hardy, so they can have mass produce these trees so that all the tops look the same, that have the desirable characteristics. So when I started digging, I noticed some of these roots around here. Like this is a girdling root. So these roots will grow in diameter as the trunk grows in diameter, and they can oftentimes strangle each other. So if we hadn't dug around, we wouldn't have noticed these things. So I was looking to try to see where this root flare would be, because the tree should have a nice flare into the ground. So I think this tree was actually planted too deeply. Somebody might have been thinking that this was the root flare up here when it was just a graft. So this root flare is probably below these girdling roots. The other thing that's an indication the tree might be too deep is a lot of these roots are coming up towards the surface to try to get oxygen. So roots need oxygen. If they're buried too deep under the ground, they don't get oxygen and they die, or they just fail to thrive. So natural, they'll grow up near the surface. And when they do that, sometimes they start to come up and they'll circle around the trunk. So we need to prune all these out. Prune a lot of these girdling roots out of here. We just cut them, get them out of there so that it's not going to be a problem in the future. So I just have these little hand tools. Normally I would, if I was working, I would use compressed air to expose all this. But we're going to expose these girdling roots and cut these too, and hopefully we'll get down to the root flare. So we're hoping that we can take enough of the soil away and we don't have to reset this whole tree. So usually when you see some problems below in the top of the tree, it's really you're having problems below ground, and a lot of it starts with, you know, production in the nursery and sometimes improper planting practices. And just following up, you can see how this tree was grafted at this point. So what I tried to do is dig down to find the root flare. So I dug all the way down here. It's actually 6 or 8 inches deeper than the tree was planted. So here's the root flare. There's some new adventitious roots coming out. I've cut a lot of the girdling roots. You can see that I've piled them here. Those were circling around the trunk. And basically, I think I have the right dosage of what I've cut off. I think we might be okay and be able just to lower this grade around the tree. But the thing that's troubling, there's this big root over here. I'm not really sure where it's coming from. It might be girdling down lower here. It looks like it might actually be that, but it's so grafted in. I think we're going to have to leave that, see how the tree survives for a year or so, and we might have to slowly remove that. Sometimes we'll cut halfway through it, leave it, let the tree settle in, and then come in and take it out later. But I think we've achieved the right amount of dosage right now of cutting off the girdling roots. But certainly all this soil is going to have to be taken away so these roots can get oxygen, because they'll all suffocate from having too much soil over them. And they'll all come back up to the surface, start circling around, and cause more girdling roots. So we'll come in here with an air spade and blow out the rest of the soil, and then do any remedial root pruning at that time.
There's a place I have found in the shade on the ground.